It was true that Audie Murphy detested him more than anyone else. That on June 20th, 1925, Audie Murphy, whose full name was Audie Leon Murphy, was born in the rural village of Kingston, which is located in Hunt County, Texas. He was the son of Emmett Barry Murphy and Josie Bell Killian, a poor farmer couple who were attempting to raise a big family during the challenging years that followed World War I and the Great Depression. He was the only child of his parents. Audie was the seventh of 12 children, and his upbringing was marked by difficult circumstances, including poverty, instability, and adversity. Although he inherited from his Irish ancestors a toughness, independence, and perseverance that would later serve him well in war, his family lived a hard-scrabble existence in rural Texas, frequently lacking appropriate food and supplies. Despite this, he was able to overcome the challenges that he faced. He was given the name Audie Leon, which had a more profound significance. His name was partially derived from the names of two men who had been kind to his mother while she was going through difficult times. Men who were there for her when she was left alone by her spouse for extended periods of time and who looked out for her. His father, Emmett, was unpredictable and frequently absent, and he moved in and out of the family home until finally abandoning the family altogether. Due to the fact that she was abandoned, Josie Bell was left to raise her enormous brood primarily on her own. As a result of Audie and his siblings taking on tasks that are disproportionate to their age, young Audie was forced to mature rapidly and develop an iron resolve to live as a result of the shattered family setting in which was raised. Murphy went to elementary school while he was growing up in the northeastern Texas villages of Farmersville, Greenville, and Celeste, despite the fact that his family was experiencing a lot of volatility. His time spent in school, on the other hand, was brief. However, by the time he reached the 5th grade, he was compelled to withdraw from school since his family was in dire need of financial assistance. Despite the fact that he was only a youngster, Audie took up the heavy load of work. He was able to secure a job as a cotton picker, with the responsibility of working long hours in the oppressive heat of Texas fields for a meager wage. Not only did he develop a work ethic that was unwavering, but he also gained a respect for the challenges that average Americans had throughout the time of the Great Depression as a result of these years. In 1941, a terrible event occurred when his mother passed away, taking the already fragile family to an even greater degree of disintegration. The news of her passing was devastating for Murphy, who had been particularly close to her. The younger members of Audie's family were separated from the rest of the family since they were placed in children's homes and orphanages because they did not have a stable household to keep them together. Audie worked a variety of odd jobs in the town of Greenville in order to make ends meet. He did everything from farmhand labor to administrative activities in order to make a livelihood. As he went through these years of uncertainty, he started to fantasize about a way out of the situation. This was not only an opportunity for him to provide for his siblings, but also for him to demonstrate that he was more than simply a poor country lad. In light of the fact that World War II was becoming more intense and the United States was getting ready to get involved, Murphy recognized an opportunity in the troops. Although he was still very young, he was adamant about joining the military so that he could provide for his family and serve his country. The military first did not accept him due to the fact that he had a small build and appeared to be young. His height was just a hair over 5 feet and 5 inches, and his weight was less than 120 pounds. In spite of everything, his perseverance ultimately paid off. Moreover, on June 30th, 1942, he was granted official entry into the United States of America, the United States Army, therefore laying the groundwork for one of the most remarkable military careers in the annals of American history. Murphy was assigned to Company B, 1st Battalion, 15th Infantry Regiment, 3rd Infantry Division by 1943, upon his completion of basic training and advanced infantry instruction. As part of his initial overseas assignment, he was sent to French Morocco, which is located in North Africa. It was there that he was exposed to the terrible realities of war. The oppressive heat, the prevalence of sickness, and the harsh terrain were just as much of a threat as the Axis forces. However, Murphy immediately became known as a soldier who was serious, disciplined, and uncompromising in the face of peril. This reputation was earned in a short moment. In July of 1943, Murphy was advanced to the rank of corporal for his leadership and ability to perform well under duress. This occurred while his division was getting ready for the important Allied invasion of Sicily. This war was essential in reducing the amount of control that the Axis had over the Mediterranean. The 7th Infantry Regiment was successful in capturing and securing the key port of Messina by the time August 1943 rolled around. This marked the beginning of the operation. The bravery that Murphy displayed throughout these operations gained him additional acclaim, and before the end of the year, he was promoted once more, this time to the rank of sergeant because of his deeds. Murphy made a name for himself during Operation Dragoon, the Allied invasion of southern France, which took place in August of the next year, 1944. Here, his bravery and tactical skill became even more apparent than they had been previously. It was with unwavering resolve that he engaged in combat with the Nazis, frequently putting his life at danger beyond what was required of him. As a result of his activities, he was promoted to the rank of second lieutenant, and he and his unit, the 1st Battalion, 15th Infantry Regiment, were awarded the Presidential Unit Citation, which is considered to be one of the most prestigious medals given to military organizations. In September of 1944, when the Allies were making their advance into the northeastern region of France, the 3rd Infantry Division encountered severe resistance from the Germans. A standout was Murphy's unwavering bravery in the face of opposition. On multiple occasions, he put himself in harm's way by exposing himself to enemy fire in order to lead his troops, rescue injured friends, or repel counterattacks. As he began to amass a vast list of medals and decorations, each of which was a monument to his bravery, it became clear that his bravery was not going unnoticed to anyone. By 1945, he had established his notoriety as a result of his participation in the conflict for the Colmar Pocket. France was the location of one of the most important engagements. Being in charge of one of the most significant counterattacks of the campaign, he exhibited amazing bravery by personally directing fire and commanding his men against the overwhelming odds. Because of his bravery, he was promoted once more, this time to the rank of 1st Lieutenant. Additionally, he was given the position of liaison officer and required to return from the front lines to headquarters. Despite the fact that it was less dangerous than actual fighting, this position highlighted the high regard that his superiors held for him. In the years following the war, Murphy continued his military career in a variety of capacities. It was in the year 1950 when he was given an appointment as a captain in the 36th Infantry Division of the Texas National Guard. Nevertheless, his life was about to take an unexpected turn. Hollywood made its way to the scene in the same year. Murphy began his acting career in war films, where his genuine experiences brought a sense of authenticity to the characters he played. He was already widely regarded as a combat hero. It was the film version of his own autobiographical novel with the same name that brought him to the apex of his cinematic career, which was To Hell and Back, which was released in 1955. Murphy, who was playing himself, provided the audience with a view into the actual grid of warfare in a manner that only he could possibly convey it. The movie went on to become one of the most successful movies that Universal Pictures had during the decade. Although everything was going on, his military obligations persisted. It was in 1956 when he was given the rank of Major in the United States Army. It was an acknowledgement of his sustained service in the Army Reserve that he received, even as his career in Hollywood expanded. Although he was dismissed from the Texas National Guard 10 years later, he continued to be involved in military circles and stayed dedicated to the causes of veterans that he supported. In the end, Murphy officially resigned from the United States military in May of 1969, after having served in both active and reserve capacities for nearly 3 decades. Armies. He was the most decorated American soldier of World War II, a man whose medals and honors included the Medal of Honor, the Distinguished Service Cross, 2 Silver Stars, the Bronze Star, the Purple Heart, and many more. By that time, he had left behind a legacy that was unrivaled by the majority of people. At the height of his early renown as a decorated war hero and a rising Hollywood actor, Audie Murphy went into his first marriage with actress Wanda Hendricks in 1949. This was the year when he was at the center of his early celebrity. The public and the media initially considered their marriage as a glamorous match between a celebrated war veteran and a promising actress. Wanda was a talented young starlet in the film industry, and their union initially received much attention from the public and the media, when it was first announced. Nevertheless, in spite of the excitement that surrounds their romance, the marriage turned out to be difficult practically from the beginning. During his time in the military, Murphy carried with him the lingering repercussions of his experiences, including the psychological wounds of warfare and what would eventually be recognized as post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD. It was difficult for him to establish stability at home because of this, in addition to the pressure of his burgeoning career in Hollywood and the responsibilities of his public life. Despite the fact that the couple had been married for only 2 years, their relationship became strained, and they ultimately divorced. Despite the fact that the separation was excruciating, it served to highlight the personal challenges that Murphy encountered as he attempted to strike a balance between his celebrity, his personal happiness, and the shadows of his military history. Later on in the same year, Murphy fell in love once more, this time with Pamela Archer, a woman who lived outside of the world of Hollywood's bright lights and unrelenting scrutiny. Pamela was a stewardess on an airline, and in contrast to his first marriage, which was to another entertainer, this relationship provided Murphy with the sense of normalcy and grounding that he so desperately required. The consistent and loving personality of Pamela proved to be a stabilizing factor in his life, and she remained by his side through the successes and difficulties that he encountered in his professional life. Their marriage was a watershed moment for Murphy, as it provided him with the opportunity to concentrate on establishing a family and achieving a certain level of tranquility away from the scrutiny of the public eye. As a result of the fact that Audie and Pamela were able to have 2 boys together, Murphy's life became significantly more significant as a result of his parenting. Terrence Michael Terry Murphy, the couple's first kid, was a source of immense pride for him, and James Shannon Skipper Murphy, the couple's second son, completed the family. Murphy made a genuine attempt to be there in the lives of his children, despite the fact that he had a busy work schedule in Hollywood and that he was still dealing with the deep-seated emotional pain that he carried from the war. Spending time with them, offering advice, and imparting knowledge that had been fashioned by adversity and perseverance brought him a great deal of delight. For Murphy, his sons were a source of optimism and continuity, as well as a cause to persevere through the challenges he was experiencing. Due to his honesty, bluntness, and refusal to flatter individuals he did not respect, Audie Murphy became the most decorated American soldier of World War II. He went on to become a Hollywood actor. Audie Murphy was recognized for his honesty and bluntness. Murphy worked alongside a large number of actors in Hollywood, some of whom he respected. However, there was one man in the industry whom he claimed to despise more than anybody else, and that was the iconic actor James Cagney. He had an extremely strong view about Cagney, which was especially surprising given that Murphy was always diplomatic when he was speaking about his colleagues. However, it is said that Murphy discussed his sentiments in private conversations and made them quite obvious. The source of Murphy's disdain was what he perceived to be a superiority complex and a condescending. Murphy believed that Cagney, despite his enormous reputation, looked down on anyone who hadn't come from the same acting background or circle as him. This was according to those who knew him. Since the beginning of his career in Hollywood, Murphy has been seen as something of an outcast. Not only did he not have any formal schooling in the arts, but he also did not have any classical training, and he did not grow up in the theater. He hailed from a poor family in a remote area of Texas, rose to prominence as a result of his heroic actions during the war, and he entered the film industry mostly due to his combat record rather than because of his enthusiasm for acting and filmmaking. Once upon a time, Murphy made the observation that Cagney behaved as if the rest of us did not belong in the same business. He never had a favorable opinion of soldiers who went on to become actors. He regarded us as amateurs who were participating in something that he owned. There was also a cultural element to the conflict between Murphy and Cagney. The city of New York is where Cagney was born. He was brought up in harsh neighborhoods, where he learned the value of toughness at an early age, and he brought his street smart and quick-talking demeanor into his film parts. Murphy, on the other hand, was a Texan resident who was reserved and humble, and he valued honesty more than swagger. Murphy had a different appreciation for Cagney's explosive energy and confident attitude on screen, despite the fact that audiences adored it. When Murphy was asked about Cagney's acting approach, he famously stated, I could never stand that mugging he did. In each and every film, he played the same antagonistic character. For me, it was nothing but a hoax. The general population may have purchased it, but I did not. The man's attitude towards the war and towards veterans, on the other hand, appeared to be the single most significant factor that led Murphy to oppose Cagney. Murphy never publicly attacked the fact that Cagney had not served in the military during World War II. Cagney had not served in the military throughout the war. While others were engaged in combat, he discreetly judged those men who had evaded military duty. During the 1940s, Cagney was subjected to rumors over his purported ties to communist sympathies and doubts regarding his patriotism. However, he was ultimately exonerated by the House Un-American Activities Committee. Murphy was a guy who had put his life in danger on the battlefield countless times, and he had little patience for people who, in his opinion, questioned the principles of the United States of America or failed to support their country during the most difficult moment in its history. Murphy stated that it did not matter to him how famous he was. When it mattered, he was nowhere to be found. That was all I knew. Too many of my friends were laid to rest for me to pretend that it didn't matter to me. The conflict was not only of an ideological nature, it was also of a professional nature. In the past, Murphy disclosed that he felt Cagney to be contemptuous whenever they came into contact with one another in the social circles of Hollywood. Murphy claims that Cagney treated him more like a curiosity, making him appear to be a combat hero who was attempting to act, rather than a genuine actor. Several times, he referred to me as "soldier boy," and he did so in a manner that was not nice. Murphy remembered. I had no problem with being referred to be a soldier. That was the case with me. Nevertheless, he uttered it as if it were an insult. The information that I needed to know about him was provided by that. With Murphy, respect was the most important thing. The actors who treated people with dignity, regardless of their background, were the ones he admired the most. Because they were able to combine their talent with humility, stars such as James Stewart, who was himself a decorated Air Force pilot, garnered the admiration of Fitzgerald. On the other hand, Murphy had the impression that Cagney was motivated solely by his ego. Murphy once made the observation that he was always acting, even when he was not on television. It was never revealed to you who the true man was. There might not have been any. The scorn that Murphy had for Cagney eventually turned into a complete and utter contempt for him. In spite of the fact that other Hollywood performers lauded Cagney as one of the most talented actors of his generation, Murphy refused to join in on the accolades. When Murphy was asked about Cagney during interviews, he would either shift the subject or provide only short answers. When he was alone, he was more forthright. In the past, Murphy told in a buddy that he detested him more than anyone else in the Hollywood industry. My feelings of envy were not based on the fact that I aspired to be him. Something that he stood for was simply intolerable to me. In my opinion, he was one of the most dishonest aspects of the company. Due to the fact that Murphy rarely allowed his private thoughts to influence his public life, this hostility was out of character for him. In most cases, he avoided becoming involved in Hollywood feuds because he preferred to maintain a limited and loyal network of friends. However, he made an exception for James Cagney in this regard. Regardless of whether it was animosity over Cagney's dismissive attitude, his evasion of military service, or his technique of self-promotion, Audie Murphy was simply unable to forgive him. In the entirety of his life, Murphy never wavered in his attitude regarding James Cagney, regardless of the circumstances surrounding the topic. Murphy carried with him a profound personal resentment that never went away, despite the fact that audiences and reviewers continued to praise Cagney as one of the greats. It was summed up quite clearly by his words. There were some people in Hollywood that I respected, but there were others that I didn't care much about. But Cagney, I detested him more than anyone else in the world. Murphy was murdered on May 28, 1971, when the private plane in which he was a passenger crashed into the side of a mountain 14 nautical miles northwest of Roanoke, Virginia. The weather at the time was cloudy, rainy, and foggy, and visibility was completely non-existent. In addition to the pilot, there were 4 additional passengers who perished.